What up, fish tank ninjas? What do we got right here?
Hello and welcome to Reef Talk. I'm Scott Anderson, and I think you guys probably already know it, but with us is Infamous Aquatics. Now, we film this show, we do two at a time. So if you remember last week, Steve was out for a family issue, and of course, we film them both on the same day, so Steve is still out. So today, we're going to continue with what we were talking about last week in our reef tank failures. So I think it's a great topic because that's how we become successful in reefing is dealing with our failures. Success is easy to deal with,
Oh yeah.
but failure takes so many people out of this hobby. And we were talking a little before the show, and Infamous was telling me about basically how he got taken down. I mean, his tank was just done for months and basically knocked him off of YouTube, and it just kind of crashed for a long period of time. So what happened?
Yeah, so at the time I moved, right? So I set up the new tank, got it all going, put the live rock in, right? Everything's looking good. Tank finished cycling. Went to the LFS. Now, this is my fault. I went to like one of the more sketch or more like has a reputation for not being well kept. It's a very nice store,
Right.
but the fish have a reputation amongst like more experienced hobbyists to not be very healthy. So I had the mistake of being like, I'm just gonna go with some clownfish, right? I got some clownfish, threw them in the tank. I put some beneficial bacteria, had the fish going. A few days later, excuse me, I actually added a few more fish, right? And then like a day after that, my clownfish were just white.
Oh,
I had, yeah, white. And my clownfish were black ocellaris. So, I mean, these guys were just like this, like hazy, like they almost look like floating clouds, like in my tank. And I ended up having marine velvet.
mm,
And like we talk about this in the hobby so much, ick, marine velvet, ick, marine velvet. But it is that big of a deal.
it really is.
I had marine velvet. Within like 2 days, my entire livestock died. Right? Entire livestock died, and then it was just like, what do you do? At this time, I didn't know too much about marine velvet because I didn't have problems with my fish before. And you know us as hobbyists, we're not just like preemptively
Yep.
looking things up most of the time, you know? We look things up as things are happening because there's so much going on already. So I looked this up, it's like marine velvet. All right, cool. We identified the problem. What do we do? Look it up. I was like, you wait 6 months. Like,
Yeah.
what? Wait 6 months? And it just like completely put my hobby on hold. The tank never stopped though, you know? But this is just like a big problem I had to deal with. It's like, what do you do? They're like, you can run vinegar through your tank, or you can wait 6 months. And I was like, well, at that time, I already had the YouTube going for like 6 months, so I already had like beneficial bacteria and everything like that going in the tank. And I was just like, I don't really want to like lose my live rod. I don't
Right.
want to like kill like completely kill everything with this vinegar bath. And then on top of that, it's like I don't have like pumps and stuff to get all that out and then wipe it down and spray everything down. It's like I just gotta wait 6 months.
Well, and then if you want to reuse that, the nitrates that are going to come out of all the death, and oh my God, that'd be horrible.
Yeah. The whole experience sucked so bad. And like that's one reason like now I'm honestly because of that uh actually like very selective on my fish now.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
until recently, I didn't have room for a quarantine tank. Now I'm going to be setting up like two 20 longs with independent like air stones, independent air pumps, independent hang on the backs, and just like let them ride. And the hanging on the back, I know you guys are going to say, oh, there's no beneficial bacteria in a quarantine tank, blah, blah, blah. No, because I'm going to use the hang on the back just for surface
Absolutely.
agitation. You just want to keep that water moving because I have another failure where I lost my chevron tang. If you've been following me for a while, I
Mm.
lost my chevron tang because I didn't have enough water circulation when I was moving. So I'm not gonna let that happen again over $20. Like,
Oh no.
yeah, I'm gonna throw that bad boy on there. There's gonna be more than enough oxygen in that water.
Yeah,
But
but I think marine velvet is probably the biggest cause of massive fish death. And
yeah,
I know people don't want to hear it, but um, I know it's taken out Steve's tank, who's usually with us. Darren's been on the show before. It's taken out his tank. Michael Aaron's talked about him having problems with marine velvet. It's just that big of a deal. It takes down so many tanks that it just, oh man, it's horrible.
it's the worst. And because of that, like, if some of you guys actually follow my channel, which I hope all of you do,
And if
but
you don't, subscribe.
subscribe. But because of that, I actually ended up going to Asia, right? And this is when I started taking the hiatus. I never shut the tank down because I had my apartment, and I let my girlfriend at the time just stay there because she was moving from Austin to Houston, and she took care of the tank. So fortunately enough, like, when you have marine velvet, you can't have fish for 6 months, but you can have corals. So I just threw some SPS frags. I had everything going. That's when I had the nice little zoic garden. I had like blue hippos, Midas, mohawks, bam bams, like all those crazy names. I had a huge collection of them, and but that's why I took the hiatus because I was in Asia. Like, it hit me hard, like
Right.
losing a few $100s in fish within, like, you just set the tank up in a week. Like, man, but I didn't quit, and that's the main thing
Right.
is like never quitting. I said that in the last video, do not quit. Keep your head up and keep on swimming. And that's what I did. I just had to take a break from the YouTube thing because it was like the perfect time for me to actually do some personal development and travel. So I did that. And I did keep it going, like I said, with the SPS. But then another problem happened. I had no fish, right?
Right.
But my girl was taking care of the tank. So you can imagine, I ended up with a hair out. Like, it
Of
just looked like
course.
death when she came
Yeah.
back. My my best friend, Fred, actually texted me. He was like, "Hey, your tank is dead."
Oh,
I was like, "What?" I was like, "What? What do you mean dead?" I shouldn't have not. I shouldn't have
no.
messaged him because it's like you've never had a fish tank. All you see is a crazy mess of hair algae.
Right.
But at the time, I told my girl, I was like, "Don't even worry about it. I'll take care of everything when I came home." I came home, everything's still alive. I just had to take care of the hair algae.
Right.
But it's just like it's gonna get you if you don't
Absolutely.
do if you don't do research and preemptively take care of these things, it's gonna get you. And honestly, even if you do research and preemptively take care of things, it's still gonna get you. It's just
Absolutely.
it's just delaying it, and you just gotta take care of it. It's always best to know what could happen with like a specific coral, like let's say like acros, to watch out for
Accurate flatworms.
what are those called, the red bugs and flatworms and all that
Yep.
stuff. And even though you're looking out for them, one may
Well,
know how to.
and I mean, you got the eggs, right? So you can dip it and everything goes fine. You put that acro in your tank and you still get the freaking flatworms.
Yeah, I mean it's you can only do so much. You know what
Well,
I mean? You can only do so much, and you just have to understand that sometimes it's not gonna your best isn't gonna be enough sometimes. You just gotta deal with it.
it's like my 210 with the ick. I quarantined everything,
Every,
everything. I mean, I did everything possible to keep ick out of that tank, and there's ick in it now. I mean, it came in on a coral or a frag. Who knows how it got in there? But it still found its way in, so now I'm living with ick,
yeah,
basically. Sucks.
and and it's so hard. Like
Right.
none of these reef safe medications are really good enough to take care of
No. And
ick.
and I know we've said this, but there's a huge difference between ick and marine velvet. They look
Oh,
similar, but a little ick is not going to kill your fish.
you're fine. You're fine.
A little marine velvet, your tank's done.
Yeah, yeah. But the beauty of marine velvet, the one thing I can say about marine velvet is this: you quarantine, that fish is done
Yep.
already. If it has marine velvet, it's done.
Yep.
Like 99.999%, it's done. And the fact that you quarantine that fish for a week or two, you never introduce it into your tank.
Yep.
It You could quarantine and still end up in your tank, but it's not gonna like unless you have some crazy stupid outbreak, you're gonna be
Right. You can have
just
really
gonna
bad outbreaks of it, or there's some pretty nasty strains of it out there that suck. But a few spots of ick aren't going to kill
yeah
your fish. Um, the only time I had marine velvet was on my Chevron tang. So
that's
expensive fish,
uh,
brought it home, put it in quarantine. See some white spots on it. It's a little bit ick, no big deal. Dump some copper in the quarantine. Come home from work, fish is dead.
can't even do nothing about it.
No,
Like
I mean
it's a death sentence.
the second you see marine velvet on your tank, it's or on your fish, it's done. You're screwed.
Yeah,
There's no chance.
yeah, it kills like in 24 to like what was it 48 hours?
Yeah,
Like what
it's.
after you see it, it's so fast
I
too.
mean, there are a few fish that have survived marine velvet. I mean, there's always outliers, but for the most part, marine velvet means death.
Yeah, and the exception does not make the rule.
No,
Let's be clear about that. Like
exactly.
the one fish that actually survived it is not the rule, guys.
Right. Yeah. No, it's terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hate marine velvet.
yeah. I mean, anyone that's experienced hates marine velvet. That all I gotta say is 6 months.
Yeah.
Six, no fish. And I mean, part of this fun of the hobby is having the fish.
Yeah, which is why we do all of this. I mean,
Yeah. But
so
what sucks for me is like that marine velvet led to this huge algae outbreak, which would have
right.
caused most people to quit too. I mean, I had hair algae on everything. It looked like a freaking like field. And it's just again, you just gotta figure out how to take care of take care of the problem. And if I would have quit, I wouldn't be where that have this tank right now. If my girlfriend wouldn't let me quit, because guys, as much as I'm preaching not to quit, not to quit, not to quit, I almost quit.
No, man.
I almost quit. You can imagine. I lost first in that move. I lost my Chevron tank.
Which is not
Which
a cheap fish. I mean,
no,
that's
I'm gonna be clear right now. That's $150 fish, guys. At least 100, 150. I've seen it go for 200, and I'm talking about a fish the size of like a silver dollar, a little bigger, like a few inches. That thing, I had it. It was seriously the size of a silver dollar, and when it died, it was probably like 3.5, 4 inches.
man.
Oh man, oh man, it's my favorite fish too. Like
Oh, I
one of my
love them.
favorite fish, easy. So that's the first thing. And in this, it's like I will never put my fish tank in this apartment again because of all the bad stuff that happened in there. Like
It's
that,
almost like
that
haunted.
apartment is fish tank cursed. So yeah, like I get the Chevron tank dies because the stupid mistake of not buying a air pump. $15
Right.
would have saved that $150 fish. And then on top of that, I'm finally restocking. I get marine velvet. And it's like, okay, come back from my trip. Seriously, every inch of my tank is covered in hair algae. So much so that all my friends think the tank is actually dead. Like,
Oh, that sucks. Now,
but you just gotta keep going, keep going. And thankfully, to my girlfriend, close as I was to quitting, she was like, "Don't quit, don't quit." She's like, "I want the fish tank. I want the fish tank. I want the fish tank. I want the fish tank." And me being me, I'm like, "Okay, okay, okay," and just kept it going, kept it going, kept it going. And she's actually the one that made me start posting again.
nice.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful for it. I was like, it's rekindled my passion for the hobby. Like I was like at the point where I still love the hobby. I always missed it, but I felt like I didn't have enough time for it. And then you just do more research, more research, more research, and you realize this hobby is not hard. This hobby is not hard as long as you stay consistent and stay patient. Nothing good happens fast.
No. Now, I think algae is a really good one to talk about because um, pretty much everybody is going to have algae in their tank at some point, no matter how
Hmm.
hard you try.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it's just going to happen. So, what did you do to deal with all that algae? Because,
Oh man, that time, what did I do? Tangs.
Tangs? Tangs are great.
Tangs. Yeah, tangs and water changes. Because one thing you'll realize, like, even if you're testing zero for phosphate, if you have algae, you are not at zero for phosphate.
Well, and I think it's important for people to understand that phosphate tests aren't that accurate. And you have phosphates no matter what. They're in your water, they're produced every time you feed the fish.
Yeah.
I mean, same
I
thing with
mean, yeah,
nitrates.
it's true. And the reason too, you're yeah, and the reason you're testing so low is because all that algae is consuming your phosphates
Absolutely.
and nitrates or nitrate, yeah, nitrates. So it's like you once you understand that, and again, it comes back to doing research. If you don't do your research, you don't know that. So once you know that, you're able to come up with a plan. And what I did was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the lights a little bit so they can reduce the photosynthetic period. I'm going to add some tanks, but just because the physical algae is gone doesn't mean the problem is solved. I'm going to do big water changes and get this phosphate out. Throw in some Chemi Pure Blue, and after after about a month, few weeks, everything was good. And that's just how I dealt with it.
But it took a month. It's not like it's going to go
Yeah,
away overnight. I mean,
yeah. Well, I
this
mean, if you take care of it overnight, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have an ammonia spike because all your snails that you just bought 300 snails to take care of it overnight are going to die.
right. Well, and I mean, all of that. So, I mean, you hear about the people doing the 3 days of darkness, right?
Hmm.
So, when that algae dies, something's got to happen, right? So then your nitrate's going to go back up, and it just resprouts right after that.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the only way to get rid of it is slowly, which
yeah.
sucks.
I'm actually planning on doing a video on this because I recently had the hair algae outbreak again because I actually went to the Philippines for a wedding, and my girlfriend is heavy-handed when it comes to feeding. So, like, you'll realize that just because you killed the hair algae, right? You haven't removed the phosphate. That hair algae is just going to be replaced with a different algae. Like, I went from hair algae, got rid of all of it, right? And then I went to diatoms. It's because I'm still
Oh man,
removing the
right?
phosphate. It's again, and as a more experienced hobbyist, it's not such a big deal. Okay, I got diatoms.
Yeah,
Take care of it. Whatever. But to a new hobbyist, that can be extremely frustrating. That you're like, I just got rid of this hair algae, now I got to deal with this. But the thing is, you have to remember you didn't actually identify the problem.
right.
What you did is you saw the signs, but you didn't actually pinpoint what the problem was. The problem wasn't the algae itself. The problem was the excess nutrients in your
Right.
tank. And until you take care of that, you're gonna have algae.
And I think it's important that new hobbyists understand that no matter what you do, odds are when you set up a tank, you're going to get algae. I mean, either you're going to put live rock in there and you're going to have stuff die off and you're going to create nutrients
Mhm.
and algae is going to grow on that, or you're going to put dry rock in and you're going to have this open canvas and the first thing that's going to colonize is the algae.
Is algae. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Especially like if you get the stuff from the ocean, that stuff is gonna leach phosphate.
oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's leaching phosphate. It's leaching phosphate. And you just gotta deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unavoidable. It can be done, but I can't say if you're setting up a tank, plan on hair algae at some point.
Yeah, that's just a fact. Especially new hobbies. I know you guys are gonna go through the whole I can skip ROD water, RODI water. I can skip the whole distill. I'm gonna just use dechlorinated tap water and stuff.
That's how
And
I
you're gonna be,
started.
yeah, that's how we all started.
Well, I mean, an RODI thing cost $180 for something that's pretty decent, and that's a lot if you're setting up a 20-gallon tank.
Yeah, and it's at that point too. Like tanks are the cheapest thing in this
Oh,
hobby.
absolutely.
Like in your head when you're first starting, you're like, man, these tanks are expensive, and then you realize, no, they are not. That is the cheapest thing you're gonna buy. So, but then you like, oh, I'm gonna have this tank. I'm not gonna spend the same amount of money, if not more, on an RODI unit.
Right.
And really, it's like, don't be cheap. Be patient. You're gonna have to save your money and wait month before you can get set up properly. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with a whole nother set of problems.
Right. When in reality, your water's the absolute most important thing with your tank.
Yeah. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, you don't keep fish, you don't keep corals, you keep your water, and your water
Exactly.
keeps your fish and corals. That's just what
Yeah.
it is. That's why personally, I'm actually going to be doing a video on this too. Is like my secret to testing is I test every day. Now I do not test everything every day.
Yeah.
I actually break everything out and I spread it out, and I'll do like I test alkalinity every day, and then I'll test another test every day. And if you break it down through 7 days, you're gonna test everything.
Yeah.
And
Now,
that way I'm not stuck testing 20, 30 minutes on one day. I can just knock it out 5 minutes every day.
now, when you test, um, I mean, sorry, when you make adjustments to your tank, are you using the testing data to make those adjustments?
Yeah, I don't make any adjustments until I test. So if I'm worried about alkalinity or let's say calcium, I'm not gonna make any adjustments if I didn't test out alkalinity or calcium beforehand. I'm gonna test out calcium, and off of that stuff, I'm gonna test it maybe once, maybe once, if not two, three times. Sometimes, if the number I need to get to is higher than expected, I'm gonna test it a few times because obviously everything happens better slowly. Like it's
Absolutely.
just gonna. So if let's say I need to jump my calcium, what is it? The max you're supposed to jump is like 20 ppm a day,
I,
max.
yeah.
Let me check that out because I know someone's gonna call me out. I got it written down right here.
I
Calcium 20 ppm. So if it's close to 20, I'm not just gonna dose it off of one
right.
test. I'm gonna dose it, maybe do like 4 or 5 ppm, test it again, 4 or 5 ppm, test it again, and that's just how I do it because you should not be dosing anything you're not testing for. You're just asking for trouble.
And I think you make a huge point is your testing has to tell you how to dose because one of the easiest ways to crash your tank is to dose improperly.
Yeah, blindly throwing calcium in your tank is not a good thing. As good as calcium is for your tank, blindly dosing it is not a good thing.
And worse is the alkalinity. I mean,
Yeah,
holy.
you can just burn. You can burn everything with alkalinity. I read something about like if it gets too high, you're just gonna totally burn the tips of your corals and just. I've never had to deal with it because I'm so rigorous about my testing. I've heard horror stories.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I guess that's why I don't go crazy on the micronutrients and stuff. I mean, I know they're important, but I can't test for them, and it bugs me to try to dose something that I can't test for.
Yeah. You're
Uh,
talking about trace elements? I'm
all your
sorry.
trace, yeah, all your trace elements,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I mean, if I can't test for it, it really makes it hard for me to want to dose something because I don't know what's going on with it.
Yeah. So true. That's one reason actually I started going with the Red Sea program. Like, no, I'm not sponsored. No, nothing. It's just research that I've done. It's like they've done their research, so I trust
Right.
when I do my research. They're the main ones talking about how much research they did and how they have the proportionate levels to your calcium, to your alkalinity, to this, to that. That I feel better because I know that off of their research, they're saying if this amount of calcium is absorbed, then this much of whatever is also absorbed.
Right. And I know we were kind of talking in our last video about how there may not be any huge advances that come. I think this is the area where I think the big advances might be made is
Yeah.
in because I don't think right now we really know how important all those micro elements and nutrients are right now, but I think they're probably much more critical than we think.
Yeah.
And I think it might be why some people can really keep Goniapora well and others just can't. Stuff
Yeah.
I mean stuff like that. I mean, why is it some people can have a 10-year-old elegance and some people and
Oh.
the majority of people
And
get them and they die?
that, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I think that's where one of the huge advances is going to come.
I think you're right. I think that's really the only place I feel like I say only, but by no means absolutes exist. But I feel like that's the major place where we can progress. But in regards to huge advantages, like I don't see like the water chemistry changing, making this huge like a massive jump in your coral growth. Like your corals are only going to grow so fast, you know?
No.
And what I think he was referring to was like when the hobby first started and they went
Well,
from like
yeah.
not even having metal halide like halides to having like metal halides and then T5s which actually have a better dispersion and like reflection and stuff and less dead spots and then you went from LEDs which was so much energy efficient like those are the jumps I think he was like referring
Well,
to
it's very
but
true. But I kind of think like the stuff right now that we kind of think of as the more fringe corals, like the non-photosynthetic and the elegant, and not so much elegance, but the Gonioporia and Alveopora, the stuff that's really hard to keep and a lot of people avoid. I
mhm.
suspect in the future it's going to be all over because it's beautiful and
Yeah.
awesome, just because we're going to nail how to keep that stuff.
Well, if you remember what we were talking about the last week when we were talking about how long we've been in the hobby, when we first started, no one kept like non-photosynthetic.
No, none.
Only like experts. I didn't know a single person, like even in the reef clubs, I didn't know a single person that actually had non-photosynthetic corals or like fans and stuff. That was just
I,
crazy. And now people like you'll see them in like not beginner hobbyists, but like intermediate to like experts, you'll see them more and more often. Like even just in that, we are already seeing that progression. Like I was talking to someone the other day, he said he had his Gonioporia for like 3 years. I was like, what? Because I just got one.
right.
Right? I just got one, and I was like, I'm doing all my research. Like I did my research for buying it, and I'm still doing my research, and I'm talking to people that actually successfully keep theirs long term, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because I love mine. Like it has a special place in my heart, and I just want to make sure it's going to get the best care possible. You know,
Absolutely.
just to avoid those problems. Just again, like to stay on top of things because if it's not one thing, it's another, and I'm trying to limit the number of things that can go wrong in my tank.
Well, and I think you made a good point about avoiding problems when you said that you research it before you buy it. I know a lot of us have made the mistake. You go to the store, you fall in love with the fish or the coral or whatever it is, you bring it home, and then you get on Google and research it. That's
Mm-mm.
exactly the backwards way to do it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Even if all you do is like a 5 minute Google search in the store, like
Exactly.
I feel like most people are just embarrassed. I truly feel like most people are embarrassed to ask. Most people are embarrassed
Yep.
to be standing there. They feel like they're just wasting space, and it's like no, you have to realize that you're gonna give this company money that you've worked hard for.
Yep.
And that money goes towards like that's my rent for this square footage that I'm taking up right now.
Yep.
Like I'm gonna sit here, and if you want me to give you money for this fish, I'm gonna be here for about 15, 20 minutes. Because I honestly, and I wouldn't say this to them, but honestly, I don't trust most local fish stores. That's why I only go to like one or two. Because half the time, if you don't have these relationships with them, by no means is every local fish store bad, but like at the end of the day, they got bills to pay.
And it's true. And I mean, that's, I think another important thing is developing the relationship with your LFS. Um,
Exactly.
you know, if you find the store where they're actually fish people, if they're there and they want to talk to you about your purchase, you probably got a pretty good store. If they're interested in your
Yeah.
tank and they're asking you questions about where it's
Bring your
going, how
water
it,
in.
exactly, that's the kind of store you want to work with. I know one of my LFSs that I visit a lot. Um, I've been going there since the late 90s. I mean,
Yeah.
I started with freshwater from them. I bought my first tank there. I mean, obviously, I don't use them exclusively, but I mean, I go in there, I know the owner, I trust the guy. I mean, we definitely have differences in opinions on how to keep stuff,
Yeah.
but I honestly know that when I walk in, that I've got a friend at the store that I can talk to about what I'm going to do and how it's going to work and all of that. And I think that's important to being a successful reefer is having that relationship with your store.
Exactly. And that's why I tell everyone I talk to when they're first getting into the hobby, it's like, understand that your local fish store is one of your best tools to avoiding problems. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, I could go onto these forums, right? Oh, I'm have the whatever snails. Okay, how do I deal with it? Takes 3, 4 days to get a reply. Or I can go to my local fish store and I can be like, Nick, who's the guy I use, Nick, this is what I have, this is my problem, and in 2 minutes I have an answer. Now his opinion may be different than a lot of people, but at least I have something to start off with.
Right.
At least I have a reply that I can look into. At least I have something that I can move forward and possibly solve this problem. And in problems, like every day is another day closer to crashing. Is
Yep.
another day of being upset. So the sooner you can solve this, the sooner you can jump on this problem, the less you're gonna have to deal with it.
Well, and I mean, you got to consider your information, right? I mean, I'm not trying to put Reef Central down or any of the forums down, but you don't know who that guy is behind the computer that's sending that information out. If you got the guy at the local fish store that
Yeah.
you at least know where he's coming from and the information behind it, which I think is
Yeah.
huge. So, I mean,
Yeah. Well, I would argue that just like your local fish store, though, you could build the same relationship with the
oh,
forums.
absolutely, absolutely. But
It's just
the point was the
it's the
quality of it.
response time. Yeah.
Well,
There you go.
the thing is if I put something out on Reef Central, if I know the guy or I know the person, it makes a lot of sense to follow his information. If
Hmm.
I don't know him, it's a lot harder for me.
Harder. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you could post something up and it take 4 days for someone that you actually know or that you trust to
right,
reply.
and
And I don't want to wait that long.
that's one of the cool things about the YouTube stuff, right? I mean, I can I can see the people's tanks. I mean, if somebody's telling me how to grow coral and they have a tank full of it that looks awesome, I can kind of I can kind of believe what he's saying. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If somebody's
Yeah.
telling me how to grow coral and it's this piece of crap tank with a bunch of dead stuff in it, I'm going to
Yeah.
take that with a grain of salt.
That's the truth.
And the
With
information
with
could be right, but I'm going to question it.
Yeah, and but you should question everything
Well,
because honestly,
absolutely.
just because this guy has a tank full of coral, I could get that tomorrow.
Well,
I
absolutely.
just gotta buy
But
colonies, like
but the
I
cool
can buy
thing is,
colonies in there.
I mean, you can take a look at the history, right? If you look at my channel, and
That's true.
if you look at my channel, go back to the first video with my 90-gallon tank. I would question what that guy's saying and telling me about growing coral.
That's,
You,
that's why when I first started, my videos were only updates.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like that's very important. Is you gotta realize like your limitations, especially if you're gonna be sharing like in the community.
yeah,
Understand that you have limitations and that you may not know what you're talking about, and that's okay. You know, like at first start off with some updates. People love updates. People feel invested in your tank. People are going to help you and you can progress, and that's how you're going to learn. And then from there, after you have a bit of a following and a little bit of experience, you'd be able to post these videos that are actually like more informative because you do have that more of a background, more like just lost that, more knowledge, and you'll be able to speak with confidence, and people are going to trust you, and you know that someone's tank isn't going to crash because of you saying something incorrect.
right. And I know that's one thing when people ask me questions. If I don't know the answer, I tell them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people ask me about angels. I'll tell them what I think, what I've heard, but I also preface it with, I've never
I
actually owned one.
exactly, exactly. You have to though. It's
Yeah,
because you have to let these because you don't want to come off as an expert. We're not experts.
no,
You know what I mean? Even Mike Paletta says he's not an expert. You know, like we're all just hobbyists. We're all just learning. You know, and it's like you have to let people understand that because people sometimes they just go on your channel and they just blindly think like you know everything. It's like no, I don't know. I do not know what that fish is. I do not know how to keep that. But from what I heard, it's this. That from my research,
right,
because I do a lot of research, this is what I would do. You know, like I had someone actually comment on one of my videos about cherry shrimp, like way back when I was doing like the freshwater and saltwater, and I was like, I don't know much about cherry shrimp. That's from Danny Alano's tank, but I did some quick research. This is what I saw. But again, take that with a grain of salt because
Exactly.
I'm just trying to help you out. Like, don't take this and just run with it. But this is what I got. You should take this to go look into it some more. And it's giving you a place to start. Is
Yeah.
basically what I'm saying.
And I would definitely look at multiple sources, right? I mean, just
Or
because one guy says it doesn't make it right, and kind of figure out what the consensus is in the hobby on stuff is a big thing when you're new.
truth. I mean, the more you know, the easier the hobby is. And that's honestly, like, I'm not even trying to give myself a plug right now, but that's why I started this whole series, Easy Reefing, and I'm actually going to be posting a video on that soon. And it's just like this hobby is so intimidating, especially at first, because you get like these people that have been in it for a while that do use big words, do use words you don't understand and stuff like that, and it can be really scary. But really, this hobby isn't too hard as long as you're staying consistent and staying patient, and you're doing your testing, and you're doing your research. As long as you do your research and stuff like that, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna have problems, but as long as you do research, you know what those problems are gonna be, and you're gonna know how to deal with them. And you just gotta keep on keeping on.
Well, and I think you made a great point when you said easy reefing. If you're looking at coral or fish and it's rated as intermediate or difficult and you're new to the hobby, just stay away
Don't.
from it.
It's not worth it. I've learned that. I've killed so many fish.
Oh, me too.
Like rest in peace to all the fish that I experimented with, but I was in over my head. I mean, I was like, I just got my 90 gallon at this time when I was like losing tons of fish, and it was just like a year into the hobby. I had the 55 gallon and went into it, and it's just like, oh, intermediate, I'll keep that. Psych, this is not freshwater. Like when
Yeah,
they say intermediate, they mean like you've been in the hobby for a few years. You know how like intermediate basically
right.
means this fish is may not eat prepared food. Like you're gonna have to get that thing onto pellets.
Yep.
You're gonna have to provide a certain like habitat. That is a fish you do research on.
Right. And if
You
it
know what I mean?
says difficult, it means the best are struggling to keep it.
Yeah. That means like there's no like you could do all the research in the world and you may not know how to keep this fish. You know, like it's it's just like that. And it's like do you want to spend your hard earned money on that? Knowing that the odds are you're just gonna end up killing it. Like I don't. Like honestly, all the fish I keep, they're all easy to like very low in the intermediate side.
Right.
It's not worth it. Like
And
with all the traveling I'm doing and stuff, I do not want to cause more problems. Like I'm gonna travel and my girlfriend's gonna take care of the tank, and then something's gonna die, and she's not gonna want to go get it out, and then all of a sudden I have a huge ammonia spike, and you see, it's just this what's it called? This train wreck. It just
yeah,
keeps
it's a
going, going,
cycle.
going, going, going. Yeah, it's a slippery slope. One thing happens, and this thing happens, this thing happens, this thing happens. It's like all would have been avoided if I just was realistic with my goals for the tank, my lifestyle, and I just picked stuff that fit that.
Exactly. I think that is just some of the best advice you can possibly give.
I appreciate that. I'm sometimes some people say I'm full of good ideas every once in a while.
Well, that is a good one. I mean, when you're starting off, that just if you can get that in your head to begin with, that makes such a difference.
Yeah, like okay, you're not gonna get the like leopard wrasse.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I mean,
Leave the leopard wrasse in the ocean. You need to leave the leopard wrasse in the ocean.
yeah, I mean, just don't go into the hobby thinking I'm gonna have a tank full of SBS and a Moorish idol and what the hell? Let's throw some big angels in there.
No, 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 no. You are not invincible. I'll tell you that right now. You are not invincible. You're gonna set yourself up for failure, and you're gonna quit the hobby. Go easy,
Oh,
easy reefing. Keep it simple. Keep it easy. Keep it fun. That's all. Because everyone has fun when they're doing good. Don't make things more difficult on yourself. Just so that you can have a little bit more color. You want, let's say, like the leopard wrasse. You want orange? Get a clownfish. Like you want orange in your tank? Get a
oh,
clownfish.
and there's so many pretty wrasses out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man.
you want a
I,
gorgeous, you want a gorgeous wrasse that's easy to take care of. There's 50 of them.
yeah. Melanaris wrasse, chorus wrasse. Those are like the bigger ones. Like
Yeah.
there's the fairy wrasses. So many. The
I love
line
my
wrasse, the four
Christmas
line wrasse,
wrasse.
mystery wrasse. Christmas wrasse. I'm actually thinking about getting one of those. I want no. Have you seen the Xmas wrasses?
No,
Oh boy, it's like a Christmas wrasse, but like super male.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's like gold. It's like red, green, and black. So
Nice.
crazy looking. Yeah, but there's so many gorgeous wrasses. It's like why even bother with one that is gonna give you nothing but headache? That's just gonna bury itself and never come up, and you just wasted $40 on it.
Exactly.
Like, have fun with the hobby. Keep it simple. Be realistic, and do your research. That's my advice to anyone who wants to limit their problems. Because there's enough. Like honestly, there's enough problems in life.
Yep.
Things happen all the time. You do not want to add. This hobby's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to relieve stress. We're not supposed to add stress to our life.
Yep. And
So
I can say for a fact there have been times where the most stressful thing in my life is my tank. And I want to avoid
exactly,
it.
yeah, exactly. But with that said, like part of the hobby, part of the fun of the hobby is pushing yourself.
Oh, exactly.
But but again, I think it comes down to knowing your limits and push those, right? Don't push, like, as a viewer, don't push my limits. Like, if you're new to reefing, don't try to keep what I'm keeping or try to do what I'm doing
Yep.
in the sense of like when it comes to like experience level or what they're doing over on Mile High Reefing. You don't want to because we've been doing it. Like, he's been doing it for 10 years. I've been doing it for 8 years. My tank is just a new setup and it may not look like it, but I've been doing it for 8 years. So I'm going to try things that I wouldn't suggest to everybody.
Well,
And just understand that you have to look in the mirror and be like, I'm new in the hobby, or I'm intermediate, or I'm an expert, and understand your limitations and push those. Because then you're going to be having the most fun.
well, just like what I'm doing with my tangs right now. They went in the tank last night. I've got 4 zebra in there. I could be
Yeah, crazy.
looking at a battle royale. There's going to be eight tangs in there
Royal Rumble.
total. I mean, so I've got an SPS tank with 8 tangs in it.
Man,
Um, that could be a problem. Now,
and that is honestly, that is exactly why I just said what I said, because
right?
I knew this was going to come up, but I'm not worried about you. You know what
No,
I mean?
I've got
And
plans if it goes wrong.
but as a new hobbyist, do not put 8 tangs, especially 8 zebra tangs,
Right,
in your tank. Like,
and
don't do it.
and 2 of them are purple tangs.
Oh man.
I
But
mean,
Scott doing it for 10 years, and for 5 he was only keeping fish. like,
yeah,
like, let him try. Let him try.
yeah, 2 of those are purple tangs, and if you price those out retail, that's like $600 worth of fish just in those
Yeah,
two.
it's yours. Yeah, because they're freaking monsters. You have some big purple tangs,
Yeah,
and
I
though
mean,
that is cheap. That's not cheap. You got to have plans for that.
yeah, but I think I can make it work. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But I
I
mean,
mean, you
that's
did it. You did your research. In my head, you did it right. If I was to do that, I would quarantine first. I would wait till I had all of them. So I'd
yep,
probably have a separate tank on the side. Put them like you
exactly
have
what I
the
did.
two sumps, right? You have
I
the
had
basement
yes, I
and
have
the
the two
frag tank.
frag tanks. Yep,
So I would put one in there. I put one in the other.
yep.
I would have the others in the quarantine tanks, and then I would put them all in at one time at night.
That's exactly what I did. So they went in last night,
See?
and we'll find out how it
See?
goes.
We're right here. We're right here. We're on the same
but
page.
but you know what?
That's research.
But you know what? We have the same page, and this can still go completely wrong because they are wild animals.
Yeah, unknown variables. You can't predict them. Everyone has his own personality. The thing is, you can do your research and limit the possibility of problems, and that's all this is. There's no. That's why I mean like, and that's what Scott and I are saying. Like, you're gonna have problems. Your goal as a hobbyist is to limit those problems to a minimum, and how you do that is by knowing your limitations and doing your research.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's probably a great place to cut it. I think this was an awesome video. So,
Yeah, I had a lot
thank,
of fun, man.
thank you so much for being on this show. If you haven't checked out Infamous Aquatics YouTube channel, check that out. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to that. It's an awesome channel. It was great having you on the show today. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers?
Yes, I would like to say, I would like everyone to remember that anyone can win. But when you fail, only a few people know how to come back from that. Right?
Absolutely.
So just don't give up. I mean, that's what this whole video is about. Don't give up. Do not give up. And have fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on.
No
Uh,
problem.
if you if you'd like to be on Reef Talk, hit myself or Steve Rotter up on our either the comments or email us at reeftalkshow@gmail.com, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks again for watching.
Later.